the way we are taught, a lot of focus is on memorization and understanding what the law is. We never go behind the why. It's like a gladiator fight, I don't know if you know that lawyers, when the entire profession started, it started with lawyers were gladiators. It was a fight to the death. In my third year, I thought that I should apply for an internship abroad. I wrote to, I think, around 300 or 400 firms, and from each one of them, I got a postal rejection. No one owes you anything. It's a professional setup. They need someone. You need a job. You are applying. There's no personal favor owed to anyone. So unless you fail, you'll never know how to execute. So failing is very important. Shortage of good lawyers. There's a lot of competition at the bottom, not at the top. Mr. Sirvai did not have a brief for 7 years. He was briefless for 7 years. One of the titans of the profession. He didn't have a brief. Over a period of time, I realized that sales is an important aspect. But the product that you're selling is yourself. You are the product. Hitler was successful for a long time. Just before he died, he realized he was a failure. Just before he died. So you'll really know whether you are a success or a failure just before you go.
Imagine you are 24 years old again. You have no clients, no reputation, no network, no money, no background, just 10,000 rupees in your bank account. Knowing everything that you know today, how would you build your legal career over next 3 years? Hi everyone, welcome to Lawstruct's podcast. Today's conversation is one that I've been personally looking forward to because I had quite a few questions while reading about our guest journey. Joining us today is Mr. Varun Pathak, who is partner at India's leading Tier 1 firm. He's a litigator and also an advocate on record with 20 plus years of experience in industry. When I looked at his career, a few things genuinely stood out to me. He pursued an LLM immediately after law school, worked with some of the finest names in the profession, spent years in building his litigation practice, experienced independent practice, and then joined Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas as counsel before becoming a partner in remarkably short span of about 18 months. And that immediately made me curious what actually happened during those 18 months. What changes in a lawyer before someone is considered ready for partnership? How different is life as a partner compared to independent practice? How do Tier 1 firms really hire? And what should today's law student actually focus on if they aspire to build a meaningful legal career? These are exactly the questions we are going to explore today. Sir, thank you so much. So when I was studying about you, when I was doing little research on you, I found little things where I think student would definitely would want to know that when you graduated and right after your graduation, you move forward with LLM right immediately after that. And now at this stage, when you look back, do you think it was something that really contributed to your journey?
So honestly, if you ask me, I was very, very clear that I wanted to pursue a master's. Firstly, because I was clear that if I start my profession, I will not take a break. I knew myself, so I wanted to go immediately after my graduation. So that was a personal decision. In terms of impact on me, it had a very big impact, and I'll explain why. So the way we are taught, a lot of focus is on memorization and understanding what the law is. We never go behind the why of it. So when I went for my master's, the prerequisite was, and it took me some time to adjust to this process. The prerequisite was that you were given a reading list, and basis your reading, which was huge always, the lecture was always a discussion. It was never that professor would never say that this is A, B, C and D of law. It was understood that you would know what is A, B, C, D of law because you would have done the reading list. It was always a discussion on interpretation, why, what are the views, how you can improve, what are the issues. So we were always starting off as if, in cricket terminology, you were always starting at 50 plus. So that thought process, and because it was at LSE, it was a cosmopolitan class, it was absolutely mind-boggling to see civil law student or a common law or a American or some other jurisdiction, a student from those jurisdictions react to the same problem in different ways. So it brought a perspective. It made me think differently. There was a lot of unlearning involved, which helped me grow into who I am today. So tangible benefit in the long run, yes. Unfortunately, if you were to ask for an immediate benefit, whether you want to practice abroad or you want to do other things, I entered the profession during the downturn. It was one of the worst market crashes at that point of time. So there were not many jobs, but I was lucky that in my masters there was a colleague of mine who had worked with Krishnamurti, Naina Krishnamurti, and Naina, she took our interview on a call. This is pre-hybrid, pre-online days. She liked us. She said, "Please join me once you are back." So we were lucky to have gotten the job. And I started out my career as a corporate lawyer because that is what the dream is for any law student. You start with corporate law. But my real desire was always being a litigator. So that's why I made that switch subsequently. I went for my something that I liked rather than going with the general flock.
Talking about LLM, when you decided that you really want to go for LLM, was there something specific that made you decide that? And considering that if you had skipped it at that time, how your journey would have looked different?
So, see, at that point of time, there was a lot of discussion about the Indian market opening up. What we've had now, at that point of time, the foreign firms had practically in that era, had hired a lot of Indians. So I had seniors from law school who had started working with Herbert Smith, Alan Overy, Ashurst, the Magic Circle firms. And there was a lot of demand. So then it had made sense to start and do a master's degree. So when we had applied, there was a clear path because the foreign firms were interested and a degree from that particular country, from a prestigious university, was something which was helpful. How things panned out is completely different. But at least when we started, I had started planning in my head that this is what I want to do. There was a lot of demand and for Indian students, especially in Magic Circle and foreign firms, they were hiring Indians.
The way you were foreseeing the market at that time, does it look very similar at this time also for somebody who's graduating now? And now if they look at the LLM market and if they want to pursue LLM right after their graduation, what difference it appears to be right now and how market is in a different position for somebody in that way?
The market today is vastly different than what it was. When I had joined, the number of law schools were much lesser. Today, you have a law school, a national law university in each state. Then you have a few good private universities. And then you have a host of state universities where a lot of law schools are there. So today, the supply is more. Secondly, the global environment is at this point of time unpredictable, and the global outlook as well is something which is different than what it was at the time I passed out. If you were to ask me, and this is my personal opinion, I think one of the best markets, and it will be for some time, Indian market will outperform other markets. And because of global variables, if you really want to work abroad or you want to go for your master's, you need to have clarity. Why are you choosing that particular course? Now, if the focus is learning oriented, then of course it's a fantastic decision. It will help you. Education never goes waste. It will help you build up your profile. It will stimulate you intellectually. And then you can pursue what you want to do. But that's a clarity that you need to have. However, if you want to settle down in a country and practice abroad, then there is a different path that you need to take. You need to evaluate which market will be sustainable for you to practice in. It's prejudging and that's the risk with prejudging. You may go wrong. So you will need to evaluate if, for example, you want to practice in the US, whether you want to practice in New York, you want to practice in California or some other bar, because each state has a different bar. Or you want to practice in Europe, Singapore, some other country, or maybe Australia even. I have had some of my colleagues who've settled down in Canada, some have settled down in Australia. It comes down to what your outlook is and what you want to do. So I have colleagues and I have classmates who've settled down as immigration attorneys, but it is primarily because they wanted to shift abroad. And that's the practice. I also know of someone who shifted abroad because his daughter was pursuing medicine and it was a very close-knit family. So he uprooted, husband, wife, both were very successful, but they uprooted, they moved with the daughter and they've started their career again. Again, it will vary for each person, but have that clarity. What is that you want to achieve with your master's degree? If you don't have a clarity, then my suggestion is work and then get that clarity.
So, if we talk about job prospects after LLM, do you think coming back to India with an LLM degree from abroad, do you think it plays a better role in getting a better job in the market? Because many students out there take loans, financial assistance to get their LLM degree.
See, I'll answer this slightly differently. The legal sector is unorganized in terms of overall employability. It is very specific to firms, very organization specific. So, if you're looking at organizations, you need to see their patterns, how they have hired in the past. So, typically, most top tier firms, how their hiring process works is that they do some hirings from law schools. They have typically, I'll not say they only go to those law schools, but typically they've been going there for hiring for a few law schools. Each firm has a list. They go to law schools, they hire students from there. And then there is a process where students get identified through internships. So you get an internship, then you get an assessment internship. And if you get recommended in an assessment internship, then different partners will interview you. It's a very rigorous process. So to ensure that there's no favoritism, that I should not put someone that I like as a candidate, it always is the assessment is done by someone else. So if you don't clear that process, which is objective, you'll not get through. So this will be something which will be applicable to firms. But if you see funds, institutions, companies, individual advocates, there are different approaches that which are there. So because the entire sector is not organized, I don't think you get a big advantage by doing a LLM. But many times it helps because your intellectual ability would have grown. You would have become much more analytical. You would have definitely changed from what you were as a law student when you graduated to what you are now after your masters. It will come down to who you are as a person when you're clearing that or when you're giving that interview. So there is no right or wrong answer. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't.
You touched upon that there are a specific set of law schools that law firms prefer sometimes. What might be the reason that these law schools are preferred? It is because of the quality that is being delivered in those law schools, or it is merely because of brand name?
When I say that firms prefer law schools, it's not that there's a bias involved. There is history and context. Now the law schools which would have come first. So if a firm would have started hiring, for example, let me say that there's a top law school which would have come 30 years back, because it has been in existence before other law schools. It would have formed a relationship with a lot of firms, and tried and tested quality of education would have already been established. Now law schools which would have come thereafter, because there is history involved. So it's more like first come first basis. That would have happened organically, and then there would be some experience that individual partners and firms would have had. So it's not as if new law schools are not considered at all. You'll see, if you see the students who've been hired in all firms, you'll see students from newer law schools as well. But because there is history and context, you tend to establish a relationship which then becomes slightly more ingrained. But where there is quality, those schools and students are of course considered. But it's more like a rebuttable presumption.
Talking about that, it is more about first come first serve basis, that there were law schools, depending on the history, it has been a long stable relationship with them. Considering that there's so many law schools out there at this moment, if we look at so many private law schools, it creates a confusion among law students, if we say, and among law firms as well, that which law school to prefer when you really want to build your career stronger. If you are not able to get into any NLU, then which law school to prefer, depending that it holds good quality, it delivers good quality to students, the infrastructure, the faculty, all type of support that a student look for and that the student need to become a better lawyer in the market.
Let me answer that question by not focusing on law schools. I'll give you an example. You see someone who wants to become an engineer, which is the first preference for them, an IIT. If you want to study abroad, MIT, or there are multiple schools, the institutional ranking basis output research is not something which is new. It's happened in every subject. So there is a process involved, and we need to accept the fact that if a student who's given an entrance exam and is towards the top of the list, then there is a rebuttable presumption that the student has worked hard. He's has good quality. He knows what he's achieved. He's already learnt a few skills. So for someone who's organized in thought process, he's already achieved. He's demonstrated his ability. He or she has. They have demonstrated that ability that we can succeed. Now, any profession, and this is something again. You see, you go abroad. They have training contracts. There's on job training. Same with you'll see consultancy firms. They pick up graduates from different streams. The reason is that freshers are teachable, are coachable. But a fresher who has already shown the ability to achieve something under pressure is already on the right track. It's not as if the other students can't achieve what they want to achieve, but you are always tested. That's the unfortunate bit, that you have to show. It's like a gladiator fight. I don't know if you know that lawyers, when the entire profession started, it started with lawyers were gladiators. It was a fight to the death. So it always, because it's an adversarial system, there is some sort of prejudging of talents. So the law schools which are doing well, and the students who are there in the rank, they have already shown a certain affinity towards achieving what they want to do. So there's a rebuttable presumption that they can be taught. It's easier to do it. Now the students from a law school which may be a new law school, if they have a profile, and you'll see multiple students who've come out, if they have a profile and they work on themselves and they show a skill set, because at the end of the day it's a market driven, because your performance gets rewarded, they will get picked up. So that's why you'll see a lot of judges, a lot of successful people come from diverse backgrounds. There is no monopoly of any law school there. So success and hard work are personality driven one, and it's very personal to that person. So irrespective of your law school, if you've worked hard, you will get the result. But of course, that hierarchy, that history, that rebuttable presumption, it plays out, because you can't always have an open process. People like processes because it cuts down the time. So if something is tried and tested, how many times, if you like to go for a meal, you would go to your favorite place. You wouldn't go and try every time I want to try something new, because it is tried and tested. You are in the profession. You are comfortable working with a certain arguing counsel or a senior counsel. It's because it's already tried and tested. You may get someone better for the same price, but it comes down to individuality, and that is always there. You can argue subjectivity, but it's there. People who are running the processes, you need to have some sort of finality. It will never be to the satisfaction of everyone.
I want to point out the statement that you just mentioned that opened lots of questions for me as well, for me to ask. You mentioned prejudging talent, and you also mentioned tried and tested. That's quite true. But if we look at that, in what segment fresher or a law student is tried and tested, or on what factors you actually prejudge the talent that the student carries, so that you make sure that he or she fits the role?
See, I'll give you a disclaimer first. I don't do the hiring for freshers, but I have hired team members over a period of time in different places. So I'll tell you what I look for. I can't speak for others. If I am interviewing someone, normally a clarity of thought is essential. Command of the language is essential. And whatever you've written on your CV, ultimately your first assessment is what you've written on your CV. If what you've written on your CV, you are able to back and demonstrate what is there, that's the first tick. Then, at least in my head, I have evolved a certain mechanism of seeing, if the person is lying, how do they react under pressure? Do they have integrity? Are they honest about their work? Are they honest to their work? What is their general approach? So for me, I always pick a person who's hardworking, because every skill is coachable, is learnable. If a person is open to learning, is hardworking, and is open to criticism, those are the qualities that at least I look for. I'm sure other people may have different qualities. They may look for a rank or prize, different aspects. But I feel that a person who's hardworking will always add more value and will bring a lot to the table, because they will take ownership of what they're doing.
Hardworking, the characteristic, the factor that somebody is hardworking definitely plays a role. But I believe, and I assume that you must agree with the fact that not every CV or every applicant who applies for a position under you, they won't get a chance to come in one-on-one contact with you. or in having an interview. Some of the CVs might get rejected in the first scrutiny. So before the stage comes where you evaluate whether somebody is hardworking or not, how you characterize or how you segregate those CVs and pick those people out of the CV that you feel that these people might be hardworking.
See, you'll be surprised. A lot of times, and this is again something I'll speak from experience. So I'll give you two incidents. So in my third year, I thought that I should apply for an internship abroad. I wrote to, I think, around 300 or 400 firms. And from each one of them, I got a postal rejection. I had kept this with me. It was one of the motivating factors. Now, when I went to LSE, one of the first things that I was taught there, because again, this is a question that arose in my mind at that point of time, that why am I getting rejections? Why am I not? I have written, if it's volume, I have written to different people. What is that I'm doing wrong? And you will get a lot of material on this. What we were told was that whenever you are applying for a job, don't do bulk applications. That's the first thing. Volume never works. List down what you think are suitable opportunities and then make your CV and covering letter suitable for that profile. Tailor make it. So as a thumb rule, what I was told was that if you spend 3 hours on your CV, you should spend around 6 times that time on your cover letter. The CV is your first tool for an interview. Someone will see it, they'll see your CV. But covering letter is what you're saying. So if someone were to, and the presumption is someone will read your CV. If they've read your CV and what you've written in your cover letter is the same, you'll not stand out. They need to know who you are. So put in thoughtfully what is that you want the person to know. So after I started following that approach, I got a lot of interviews. I got through a lot of places following this approach. Now, this is something which is unfortunately not taught to law students. But my suggestion is there is a lot of material on the internet and most universities will have podcasts or videos on this. Please read, understand how to make a good CV, how to make a good cover letter. And don't do bulk applications. And just remember one thing. Everyone who's applying for that job will say that you are very good, at least that organization, and that they are very good. Now, you may not know that what the other person has read. If you're saying that I want to join organization X, that the organization X is doing so well, I want to contribute, and that's something which will be routine and consistent across all applications. So again, this is something which was told to us, that do a deep dive research. Give the organization, because the people who are doing that job read multiple applications and they are able to see if you've put that hard work in that application. Your first step through that door is if they see that you've put in that time and effort in that application. That is something that people don't do. People, I can show you on my LinkedIn, people write, dear sir, dear madam. Some people have also written, dear madam. Now, if you're writing to someone, at least make the effort of finding out who they are. Put your mind. If you're doing speculative applications, be professional in the way you're doing it. No one, and again, this is something which was told to us, no one owes you anything. It's a professional setup. They need someone. You need a job. You are applying. There's no personal favor owed to anyone. They will choose the best from what is available. So unless you put in that effort, you will not get called. And that's the approach I've followed ever since. And I think that should answer that what is that you need to do.
But if we discuss in that way, considering the demand to supply ratio, for one position there are thousands of applications. There are so many CVs, and if you have to evaluate all those CVs on your own, what is one thing that you will look for primarily? Just one thing.
Let me take a step back. See, if your demand to supply is one aspect, but there's still a lot of places which require good quality interns. Like during my internship days, it's not as if internships were easy during my time. I had interned with the Commissioner for Disabilities as a student. We used to answer, it was fascinating. I did not know this. So there were letters written to God, written to the President, written to the Prime Minister that I have X problem. So there was I still remember, there was very poor family. They had been completely destroyed in some natural calamity, and they were suffering through economic hardship. They had written to the president that please help us out. So Our job as interns was to identify which is the closest authority to that area and send it to the correct person and then follow up. Now, while doing this, we were drafting letters, we were synopsis, we were doing a lot of things. Now, the reason I was able to do it is because I thought out of the box. I went and did it. You'll still have a lot of places where you can do actual work rather than running after limited opportunities. You should try and create opportunity. There are still untapped areas where you can intern. Like I was telling you an example of he wrote to professors to do proofreading for law professors. Now, when you are doing proofreading, he would have read different papers. He would have done a lot of reading. He would have learned something. So identify what is that you want to do and then work towards it. Create opportunities because it will never be a situation, and take it that as a lawyer as well. There is no easy case. You have to create opportunities. You have to create strategies. You have to see what your objective is, and then you have to get that result for your client. So the same thing you need to start doing. You will have a lot of failures. Those failures will teach you what not to do. Like the example I gave you, had I not applied to those more than 300 firms and had I not received those letters, I would have never questioned that why did I not get. I applied because I thought volume would work. It was not working in the Indian market. I said, let me try in a foreign market. It didn't work in the Indian market. It didn't work in the foreign market. Then I wanted to understand what is that I was doing wrong. Because I asked that question, because I had failed, I got the answer which helped me subsequently. So unless you fail, you will never know how to execute. So failing is very important.
You were talking about creating opportunities, to which I can recall that we were having this discussion before as well, that there is a supply to demand issue, or the ratio is bit not balanced. When we look at the market, law students are more focused on some specific fields only when it comes, either it's litigation or working at top tier 1 firm or being a general counsel or in-house counsel. Do you think it's actually the matter of supply to demand ratio, or it's more like that they are not open to research to more industries?
See, again, if you were to look at it simplistically, there is a demand and supply issue if you're looking at everyone wanting to join law firms, because the top law firms are only so many, and even though the top law firms they are big by numbers, but they will never be able to absorb the entire law students. The number of students which pass out is in lakhs. If you see top tier firms, you see even mid tier firms. Even if you were to do the maths, you will understand that the firms can't absorb all the people who have passed out. So in terms of opportunities, again, I said it's an unorganized market. There is no central repository where you can see where are the opportunities which are arising. So we, as students, as professionals, if there are lateral opportunities, you have to depend on headhunters, search engines, social media like LinkedIn, where you look for opportunities, or word of mouth. There is a mismatch. But if you were to, there are opportunities, but it requires some sort of deep dive. Because of the very nature of the unorganized setup, because there's no central repository, there will be an opportunity mismatch. So if a person who's aware of an opportunity will apply, it will not be where, there will be, you will not have a public application where, one person, multiple people will apply for that job. So that mismatch is there. But it's my suggestion again is that please do a deep dive, do a research, ask people, see whichever organization, because each organization does its hiring, whichever organization is doing its hiring, which law school they went to, what type of hirings they have done, what are the areas, and think out of the box. Most applications that you get, most law students, they'll all say that we want to do arbitration. That's ADR. But they don't understand, like, you can only have so many people doing ADR. There is a lot of scope for traditional litigation. Now, something like a white-collar professional, white-collar crimes is a very, very lucrative field. But you can only practice white-collar once you've done district court work. You'll like I did a lot of power sector work. At that point of time, there were not many commentaries. It was learning. There was no one to teach me. So it was learning on the job. Again, it's a very lucrative sector. You'll see oil and gas, very lucrative sector. But people don't want to go for it. So there are different sectors, different areas. do a deeper dive. Don't just go for the traditional areas of law. Or if you're going, be a professional, learn the basics, understand what you want to do.
Do you think they do it? They only prefer these specific field because they are so fascinated by the glamour that is being presented in series, you can say movies. That it is it really there? Because you are already a partner at a tier one firm. You yourself are a litigator. You are advocate on record. Do you think it is as glamorous as it appears to be? Because most of the law students are fascinated by that, and that is the reason they want to be there.
That's true. See, everyone looks at the top guys and says it's a glamorous life. It's like what you see with film stars. I remember a couple of interviews to top senior counsels, and both were quoting top senior counsels of the erstwhile era. One was quoting Mr. Jethmalani, one was quoting Mr. Sinha, Lal Sinha. He was ex-attorney general. And this is when they were joining the profession, both the counsels. They said that there are a lot of people, there are no briefs, what do we do? It's not something unique. If any of you have, please go back and read Mr. H.M. Sirvai's autobiography. There was a Senatory edition. I'll come back to Mr. Sirvai. So both, I think one was Mr. Vikas Singh and one was Mr. Vikas Singh gave the story of Mr. Sinha. He said, I want to join the profession, but there's a lot of competition. There are no briefs. He said, what do you want to do? What type of lawyer do you want to become? He said, I want to become a good lawyer. Mr. Sinha said, shortage of good lawyers. There's a lot of competition at the bottom, not at the top. Same thing was told by Mr. Jethmalani to someone else. Two different stalwarts said the same thing. If you pick up Mr. Sirvai's book, I think it was a biography written by his wife or his son, I think, on his Senatory edition. Mr. Sirvai did not have a brief for 7 years. He was briefless for 7 years. One of the titans of the profession. He didn't have a brief. You please read whatever material you get on Mr. Nani Palkewala. You'll get a lot of people in the past, Indian top counsels and abroad. Getting briefs has always been an issue, but people, when they persevere, when they work hard, they succeed. And I don't know how it will play out for me, but my assessment is there is scope for people who excel. So you have to make your niche in how you excel and where you want to excel.
You mentioned that there's quite of competition at the bottom. So if somebody wants to, skip that competition or wants to go beyond that competition or level up, if we say in that layman language, if somebody wants to level up and get a little more up, what they really need to do? We would want to include both the law students here and young professionals who are there in the market, just enter in the market.
So first, again, like I said, knowledge of language is non-negotiable. Now, because you are expressing yourself in the language, in writing the brief, in explaining, doing the drafting and explaining, how you put your point across is very, very important. And I would recommend to everyone, whether you're a student or a practitioner, please read up whatever material that you get on persuasion. Read up rhetoric. Start with Aristotle's rhetoric. Look at Churchillian art of rhetoric. Look at persuasion generally. And you'll see there is a lot of literature in terms of research where how to persuade, different studies have been done. We are in the business of persuasion. I'll give you an example, not law related, but generally. If you see all malls, have you ever wondered why do you have competitors like you see salon? You'll see different types of salons together. Have you ever wondered why is that?
Because that is the market.
By being together, are they not eating into each other's competition? Should they not be at different places?
They might be. They can be.
Do you think there is a study where someone has studied this phenomenon?
I'm not sure of that, but I think from my perspective, I think it's because when a market is concentrated, that I will know that I'll find lawyers in this place, like going to a hub.
Don't, again, focus out of lawyers. Look at a general principle.
I'm not sure of that.
There is literature. You'll see studies on this. That whenever you are spaced out, your business will go down. So that is why if you'll see, even though they're competitors, they do more business. The color scheming, certain colors make you more receptive to buying. You always have food courts at the top. There's a process. So this is how the entire advertising industry, and there's a lot of literature again on this. You'll also see from a lawyer's perspective persuasion. Now, I'll give you an example. This is something that you'll read in rhetoric. Now, you have a set of facts. No matter who you are, every set of facts will have some anomaly, something which is wrong. And you can see, because you're lawyers, you would have seen a lot of counsels argue an analogy because the analogy is perfect. There is no handicap of the facts. So what they'll do is, they'll say, these are my facts, then argue the analogy. Because I'm arguing the analogy, you are only thinking about the analogy. And when I give my conclusion, I'm giving my conclusion basis the analogy. And then I'll apply that analogy to that facts. But if I were to do the same thing on these facts, the facts, you will have a lot of questions because the facts are not perfect. These are all skills that as you go, read language, read persuasion, read as much law, speed reading, mind mapping, all these things help. So become a better version of yourself, increase your skill set, and become better than your peers. Like if you see mind mapping, and again, this is a very simple tool. If you were to do speed reading, when you read like this, you can time yourself. You will take slightly longer. If you were to keep a pencil or if you were to roll your eyes, you will read faster. And these are all techniques. This is all coachable. But if you don't want to become better, you will never look. These are things that you need to do when you are there. So language is the first prerequisite, because what you'll stay in your pleadings, how you put your point across, your reasoning, rhetoric, logic, and read whatever you like. You like literature, you like philosophy, because then you will be able to use it in your advocacy, because you never switch off. Whenever you're arguing or whenever you're advising, you always bring your entire personality, whatever you know, to the table. You will advise from a holistic perspective of who you are. I can't bifurcate any part of my personality. So every time you add layers to your personality, layers to who you are, your skill set, it will reflect in the advice and the strategy that you devise. So work on yourself. That's my simple answer to your question, that how do you improve? Work on yourself, increase your skill set. You're always in competition with yourself. Gauge where you are compared to your peers. Look at the top guy, look at your peers. There will always be someone ahead of you, someone behind you. But work on yourself. You are always competing with who you are.
Do you think there is some specific thing a law student can to attain those skills or to work on those skills when they are specifically in law school?
So again, this is something that I did. So you can't possibly read the entire law. So what I started doing was I identified a few judges that I liked. I liked reading their judgments. And then every time they would pass a judgment, I would read it cover to cover. Because I would have read that judgment cover to cover, I would remember there would be a reference to another judgment or a proposition. And because I had identified this judge, I will be able to do that search and then use that. So it becomes, one, you grow, you know the law, you'll not forget this. And you then use material which is specified in those judgments. Like I was just talking about a very old book on how to read ratio dissent. I came across that book because there was reference in a judgment by Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul. I picked that up, and it's freely available on the internet. You can also do it. It's a Harvard publication, 1890s. So pick it up, read. As you go forward, read the theoretical basis of law. Because not every time you will get a brief where law will be in your favor. You will need to distinguish, or you will need to say why this law requires reconsideration. You will need to strategize. You will need to break down the foundational basis of that proposition. That you can only do if you start thinking like that. So whatever extra reading that you do helps you make your thought process sharper.
I definitely agree with that. Along with that, you must be aware of the mooting culture we are having in India right now. Not in India, just globally, there is a popular mooting culture. Do you think it really helps in building those skills that we were talking about?
Yes, it does. See, because like I said, that if everyone improves, then the new standard is the improved basic criteria. It's same for mooting as well. Mooting at one point of time was something extra that students were doing. Now it's become a prerequisite everyone should be doing. But now you have negotiation, you have lots of other competitions. Any competition where you can judge your skill set in terms of your peers will help you assess realistically who you are. You need to have a certain amount of objectivity, and you need to learn to take criticism. That is the most important thing. So each one of us has friends. If you can find a friend or someone who will give you an objective and accurate criticism, please use that. Or if you don't have, speak in front of a camera and then review what you've done, how you've addressed a certain competition, what was your output, and critically evaluate. It's very difficult. For example, I can't watch myself, and no matter what I do, I can't watch myself. But I have people, I have requested them that please give a critique. And many times it stings. I tell them not to repeat themselves. But at some point of time, I will go, if not immediately, I will assess it objectively, then come to a conclusion whether they were right or wrong. If they were right, I will make corrections. If they were wrong, then I will embrace what they've said and then knowingly go forward that this is how it gets perceived. But I'm okay with it getting perceived in that sense. So that sharpens my individuality. You can't be palatable to everyone, but that feedback loop is important.
Do you think that, considering that in the end you might have to work individually, you might have to work independently, you might not be working under law firm or in a company. So do you think it, in this age where there's a lot of competition, it is really important for lawyers to learn sales? Do you think it becomes a part of it? But it sounds controversial when I say sales, because it's
It's not controversial. And again, I'll answer from my perspective. When I started out in the profession, I thought your output, your result would determine how you're perceived. So in the first part of my career, I had a lot of victories against top counsel and as an arguing counsel. But there was no inflow of briefs that I thought, because if I'm winning, that I should be getting. Over a period of time, I realized that sales is an important aspect. But sales, when you say sales, it's the product that you're selling is yourself. You are the product. So there has to be a certain amount of authenticity. There is a human element involved. And I don't know if it comes across, but naturally I have been an introvert. So it was difficult for me. I had to learn. It doesn't come naturally to me. So sales is an important aspect, and ultimately you are the product. You are in the business profession. Now, people don't like to call it a business, in the profession of law. So to generate more briefs in a way, or to generate more work, there is an element of salesmanship involved. I feel, again, this is personal, having a little bit of empathy, values and genuineness to that aspect of business and sales helps. But you'll always also see different types of people who will do it differently. Some of them will be superficial, some of them will lie to their teeth, some of them will be genuine. But it's an important aspect. You will need to find your own bearing doing this. But as a profession, and that's true with every profession, we are the best ambassadors of who we are and the product and the service that we are offering. So in a sense, it's a sales pitch.
Now I think we'll be asking some questions, sort of that it will be like a rapid fire, not rapid fire. Very direct questions and very direct answers you would expect. What do you think about certificate courses that are going around? Do you think there's so many courses out there? What I want to know, how you see them, the certificate courses.
I'll say they are helpful because at the end of the day, you are pushing yourself to do something more. It will add value to your profile in terms of knowledge if you have really worked on it. If you're just not taking it and treating it like a paper, empty paper, it is helpful.
But if you see, there's so many courses out there, so many. Every now and then there's some course. How do you suggest that, how to bifurcate or how to bring the best out, choose the best out of those courses, and on what grounds you choose the right course for you?
So be focused. You have a lot of good courses and a lot of, in fact, if you see foreign universities as well, have a lot of good courses. Identify what you want to do and then focus on your area of learning. But be very, very clear. Don't just do ad hoc courses, one arbitration, one your data protection, one something on mergers and acquisition, something on. Identify what you like. Do that assessment. If you have that clarity of thought, sometimes it's difficult. You are entitled to change your view. I'm not saying don't change your view. But at least have that clarity of thought why you're doing something. As long as you have that clarity, anything extra will always be helpful. But the caveat is you only have so much time. So your currency is your time. Use it wisely.
I would want to know from the employer's perspective here. So if somebody is coming up with a CV and they have lots of courses from different institutions or the companies that you'll see right now, there are so many companies out there, how you will see that, what lens you will use to find the credibility of those courses, that, okay, this courses hold some value, this does not.
So let me answer it. If I have to interview someone and I have a CV in front of me, and that person has done a lot of courses. So one, it shows initiative that they've taken that effort of doing that extra learning. But from the list of courses that I would see, if I see no pattern or I see that they are disjointed, then my first perception is that this person does not have a clear thought process. I will then test him on clarity of thought process when I'm asking those questions. So each CV will carry a unique profile which will create a certain impression. Now, because we are testing and we are checking for certain skill sets, we will just poke you to get that reaction and to understand who you are. Because it's a short process. I can't, in a short time span, understand really who you are. but I can definitely try and understand. There's a difference. I may not be able to understand who you are, but I can make that effort and try and understand. And when I'm doing so, I will ask questions basis what you've written. So, if, for example, you've written that you understand data protection, I'll ask you questions on data protection. Now, if someone says I filed a writ, again, let me just why go to a course? Let me just someone has written that I've filed a writ. I'll ask them what are the type of writs which are there. What is the difference between a 32 jurisdiction and 226 jurisdiction? I will ask questions which will be fundamental to what you've written. If you would have done that work, you will have some sort of an answer. You may not have a perfect answer, but if you have not done, you are lying. Then it will come across. And where you don't know and you are honest, this is what you judge. You say I've done this, but this I know, this I don't know. But if I can find out. People appreciate honesty. You may not get selected, but people appreciate honesty. Because then I will test them that, okay, this he doesn't know, but does he know the other aspects thoroughly? Do I need to take a written test? Do I need to do this? I'll ask someone else also to assess. There are different permutation combinations, but there has to be that genuineness which has to reflect from that CV. So to answer your question with respect to the courses, yes, it shows initiative. It does show that they have done. But if you have written that course and you are not able to even answer basic questions on those courses, on those subject matters, it will reflect very poorly on you.
Does the institution matter from where they've taken the course?
Sometimes, if it's a premier institution and it's a premier course, it will. But if you're not able to answer, then that certificate will not carry any weight.
So this is more about what advice you would give to your younger self. So if you were to start your career again in this era in 2026, with all the knowledge that you have right now, what you would do?
So if I have to go back in time, I would read a lot more, write a lot more, and be focused from day one. It's not that you can't make up for time. And success is dependent on a lot of factors. And I always give this example. Hitler was successful for a long time. Just before he died, he realized he was a failure. Just before he died. So you'll really know whether you are a success or a failure just before you go. So success is relative. But if I have to go back, I will say read more, work. I've always worked hard, but be more organized. It's like at what time you enter the queue. It makes a difference. If you are organized, you start early. You get that head start. So I was little disorganized when I started. I started with corporate, I then switched. But I didn't have any guidance. I learned. Now, if I were to start, I would to start. And if money is not an issue, I would start as a researcher in the courts. Because then I will get a holistic bird's eye view, front seat view as to how a judge thinks, how the file looks like, who are the best counsels. Your best learning happens in court.
What is the one mistake that you think that you made and that students can avoid?
Again, I should have little more. I should have started writing. I started much later. I should have written a lot more. Because when you write, what happens is you will have a lot of drafts which are not up to the mark. But eventually you will reach and have a draft which is satisfactory. It clears up your thought process. It teaches you a lot. Again, it's something to do with language. Writing improves your language. I did not connect it in that sense. But if I were to go back in time, I will write a lot more.
If I talk about what is that one thing that you look in a student and you can tell that he or she is going to make it?
It's not a fair judgment call to make. But if I were to, make that assessment, and we all make SNAP assessments. My SNAP assessment always is based on how organized a person is and how they treat simple and small situations in their life. It reflects their thought process.
So if students remember one thing from this podcast, what you want them to remember?
Work hard, understand who you are, what you want to do, and then completely deploy all your resources towards achieving what your dream is. But crystallize your thought process. It will help you a lot.
That's very precise. Okay. Now we have the signature question. So the question is, imagine you are 24 years old again. You have no clients, no reputation, no network, no money, no background, just 10,000 rupees in your bank account. Knowing everything that you know today, how would you build your legal career over next 3 years?
If I had 10,000 in my account, I would go and sit in a library. I will attend court every day. I will go and meet people and then try and build up a practice. There are a few things that happen organically and they are intuitive when you are there in court. Things happen when you are there in court. So I would be there in court, observe the entire process and then take it from there. It's a lot like test cricket. You can't plan, but as long as you're there, you'll figure it out as you go.
So it's more about that you go to the playground, you play as long as you can.
The longer you are there in the game, the more effective you're likely to be.
So that was Mr. Varun Pathak with us today. And if you want such more sessions, stay tuned with Lawstruct.